So let's talk sew-ins. We're about to do a traditional sew-in today. I have my client who is already braided down and her scalp is oiled and ready for this style. The style is usually said to be a protective style, and the only way to make it protective is to make sure that we are properly oiling their scalp, braiding it down securely, making sure that it's not too tight so that the client doesn't get any tension or pulling. As you can see, my client's head is kind of small. So with the 3 bundles that she is using today, it's going to be hard for me to pack those in singly. So I'm going to go into the back. I'm going to double that first bundle in the back. So I'm going to show you exactly how we're going to do that. So when you talk about doubling your wefts, you want to make sure that your wefts are laid flat apart so that they are not looking bulky when the client tries to take their hair into a different direction. So what I've done is I've taken the whole weft and split it in half, and I'm about to begin sewing. Normally, I do not take my needles through the wefts, but I do on the outside to make sure it's secure. So I'm going to take my needle through the braid and through both of the tracks. I'm going to stop right where you see this knot at, and I'm going to take my needle through there and pull to lock it in. That's going to be your first step on your side, and you're going to do that about 3 times in that same spot to make sure that it is super secure. Now if you get right here and you see that you have some extra thread hanging, you're going to go up top and pull on it right at the root and stretch everything back out. And we're going to continue that across the bottom part of this track, making sure that no excess thread is hanging, and evening out the thread if it's not matching up. So I'm continuing on with this portion all the way across the bottom. What I'm doing is called a single stitch. I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm literally just going through the braid and the weft at the same time, pulling straight through. I'm not creating any locks. I'm not going too far apart, and I'm not going too close together, not even a ½ an inch apart within my thread. This is the part that I really want you to focus on when you are double tracking. Although I started this front part together, once you get to the end here, you do not want to fold both of these together because it's going to create bulkiness. So what you want to do is leave the track alone that's on the top, and you're going to continue sewing with the one that's on the bottom, going straight through that weft. And here we're going to fold this one by itself. You're going to take your fingers, pinch that track, making sure that top one is coming above it, and we're actually going to go under. We're going to go under here to secure that, and we're going to go through about 3 times. Going under. So now that track is completely flat, you don't have any bulkiness, and you continue sewing. You're going to sew until you catch up to that part that we left down, pulling any excess thread that you see. And now once we caught up to that track that we left down at the bottom, now we are going to begin and continue sewing with both of those going across the bottom line. And I like to use my finger to hold everything in place so that it's not moving or that I'm not creating any extra tension once I go back along the bottom. As you can see right here, my threads are beginning to make a hook. So what I'm doing to make sure that the tracks don't slide is that I'm going through the braid and up under the wefts, but my needle is in between my thread. This adds extra security to your stitching. So again, I have my thread here. I'm going through the braid and up under the wefts, pulling through and it is creating a lock stitch. Again, through the braid, under both of the tracks, and I'm just pulling, and then it's creating a lock stitch. We're gonna repeat what we did with the fold over method. We're gonna leave that track exactly where it is, go through with the needle and the weft about 2 times, 2 or 3, depending on your comfort level. So I did 3 times. Now I'm going to fold this track, pinch it, so you can see I'm holding some on top of there. And then I'm going to take my needle under the weft, through the braid to secure. So I'm going under the braid, through the weft, and just straight up. And I'm going to do that 2 times to make sure nothing is moving. Locking that in. Now we have that part of the weft secure and it's flat. That is what you're going to do when you are double tracking. So I'm going to finish this bundle, repeating those steps, leaving that 1 track on the bottom and doing the top, and then I'll be right back to show you what we do when we get to the sides. Okay, so now that I have completed doing the double tracking in the back, I'm going to move on to her second bundle, which we will be doing singly. I'm making sure that I do these tracks pretty close together so that we can pack them all in and that everything is nice and seamless. So I'm going to go forward with adding in this track single and doing the same lock stitch that I did before. So you want to keep going with your wefts from directly where you stopped at. So I stopped here. I'm going to go straight through with my needle. Remember, wherever I stopped previously, I'm going to keep going. So I'm taking that needle right through the weft and the track at this point and just going straight through just a couple times before going back into my lock stitching. So we're going to go under the braid, through the track, and then we're going to make sure that our needle is in between. If this is not comfortable for you to do, you also can go through the braid, through the track, wrap your thread around twice and pull. This also will create a lock. So again, that's through the braid, through the weft, wrap it twice and pull. So you can determine what your comfort level is or which one feels better. And you can literally rotate between if you just want to try them out. So again, when creating your lock stitch, you want to make sure you're going through the braid, through the weft, circling around twice and pulling through. This will give you the same effect that I did prior. Through the braid, the weft, circling twice and pulling through. The most important part about getting to the edge is making sure you do not put too much tension here. Because this client is braided and it's already coming back, you do not want to pull that really hard. So flip your tracks, make sure you're folding, and we're going to go up under, making sure that this is super flat and super flush against the client's head. So I'm going to fold that, go up under the track and the braid, pulling up. And I need to do that about 3 times to make sure that it is secure. Check in. Like right now, I can move that. You don't want that to happen. So I'm going to go back to the ends and do it again to secure it. And that's getting tighter. And then your last option that you can do is from the outside with your needle going straight through into the braid and pulling back. Everything is locked in. And we are done with this thread. So we're going to go through, wrap it around before we cut so that everything stays in place. So now I'm going to finish this same process all the way through, looping in back and forth motions, curving on her right side. It's also very important to note when you're doing a sew-in to make sure that anytime you see excess thread hanging, that you catch it right away, because your client could be at home and be combing or brushing or detangling their hair, and if they catch on to a piece of thread that is not in the weft, it could cause damage to the hair, and it also could be annoying to your client because they may not know how to get to it. So you just want to make sure that everything is as smooth as it can possibly be, so that there are no issues once they leave your chair. So once you have flipped your tracks over at the end and come all the way around, you want everything to be super seamless and super neat. Once you follow those same directions, you shouldn't have any issues going back and forth throughout this sew-in. So we're just going to continue filling in here, and then we'll be back to closing the top. At any time, if you feel like you cut the thread too early prior to you being able to close it off, you want to go back to where you were just a little bit behind that so that you can go over it. I have some extra thread here, so if you have that and you don't cut it off, you can lay that there and continue sewing around it. This will begin to make everything melt together, and you won't have that issue with having thread hanging. So I'm going around it, circling that needle, pulling that in, going around that thread on the braid, circling and pulling in. We still have a flat fold over here, and we can continue sewing. Sometimes people have issues going between the needle and the weft really fast, and it can be frustrating. You also do not have to go through the wefts. You also can go under the weft and get the exact same outcome, and it can allow you to go even faster because you're not having to deal with pushing that needle through. So it's definitely okay if you decide you just want to go up under the weft instead of through it. As long as you circle it, everything should still stay intact. So under the weft, circle around and pull. And we're going to finish this track about here, and we'll do the next one above here. Usually you would not skip, but because we started this braid right here, we don't want to put too much tension there. So the next strap will fall up under here and go around, and our final one will be on top. This will allow less tension and more flatness. We don't want to get broken up in here. And again, if you are not comfortable with the circling, you're just going to go straight through and pull. Straight through and pull. But on that end, we don't want to lock it in. Also, another trick to not having extra thread, because I'm going to start a new track here and I'm not starting from here, I'm going to take my needle and thread and just go under that braid, pulling. Although you have this here, once I start braiding, that will go away, but you don't want to just take that piece of thread from here and just take it straight up there. You want to have it connecting and flowing. I'm going to lay that where I want it to go, which is right here. And as you can see, this is all smooth. That is what you want. So I'm going to do the braid and the weft, straight down. I always hold this here because sometimes people have the tension that they want to bring this back. You don't want to do that. That's going to cause tension on your client's hair. So if I hold this way, then I won't start pulling on it. So now that we have finished putting in all of our wefts from left to right, filling in our right side, we're now at the top. I usually do not cut the bundles throughout any portion of the hairstyle. However, at the top, we want it to be as flat as possible, as I stated. So I have two pieces here that are pre-cut to make sure that I finish off the perimeter of her hair so that everything is flat. So I want to just make sure. So actually this one will go on this side, and then this one will go on our right side, and we will be totally finished with our sew-in, and then we'll go into our styling portion. So to add in our shorter pieces, I've already pre-cut and pre-measured, so I'll be using this much. I'm going to go ahead and take this piece of thread right on through that braid just to have it locked in there. I'm going to go through the braid, through the weft, and pull it straight through. Repeating 3 times on that end to make sure it is super secure and flat. And again, I'm holding it down so that she's getting the least amount of tension she possibly can. I actually do these just a tad bit closer together, being that most people with their installs, they do their upkeep at home. So because this is out, this is where most of the combing goes. So you don't want to have too wide of a section between your thread, because you do not want it to get caught between that comb or that brush or whatever it is that they're using. So that's why you'll see that these are a lot closer than they are in the back. So right here, I see that there's some thread that I still have, and we do not want this. So I'm going to lay that down, take my needle through it, and continue sewing through there. Just going back over that top part. Pulling the thread if I see anything else that's loose. And I see a piece here. And we're going to tie that off. Start off with a new needle and thread so that we can finish this one and our sewing is complete. So we have just finished our very last track, and now our entire sewing is complete. It's super flat to her head. Now all we have to do is go in with our styling aids for shine and our curling irons, and that is what we're going to do right now. Now that we have finished the styling portion of our install, the last step to do is to lay our edges down. So I have a dab of edge control. I like to use Design Essentials, and I'm just going to lightly dab that on her edges on both sides. She usually likes her hair really natural, but today we're just going to put a little product on it and smooth it back. So now that we've done that, we are completely finished with our very natural, everyday look of a traditional sew-in with sleeve out. You can always remix this by rewatching the video of the lace closure, quick weave, and adding that at the top, and you will do your sew-in steps, and then you have a 2-for-1.